So at the bottom of your screen, there's a participant button. Click that, and then you see on the right-hand side a list of participants. Then you'll see the raise hand. So that's where you're going to click the raise the hand to ask a question or make a comment. For those who are on the phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. And before you speak, please unmute yourself. For those on the phone, you can dial *6 to unmute yourself. Okay, let's do introductions. Since we have 52 people in the meeting, we're going to do introductions by groups. We're going to do the introduction for the Roundtable Committee first. Since we have a defined membership for our RTP Roundtable, we're going to do roll calls. So please state your name, the agency you're with when you introduce yourself. Remember to unmute yourself when your name, when you are ready to talk. Jeannie, please start the roll call.
City of Clovis.
Hi, this is Dave Merchant, City of Clovis.
Thank you. City of Coalinga. Sean Brewer, City of Coalinga. City of Fireball. City of Fowler. City of Fresno.
Hello, this is Sophia Pagalatis, Planning Manager with the City of Fresno.
Okay, is Dan Zach on the line? Are you representing City of Fresno for?
I'm representing Dan, yes.
City of Huron. City of Kerman.
John Jansen, City Manager, City of Kerman.
City of Kingsburg. City of Mendota. City of Orange Cove. City of Parlier. City of Reedley.
This is Rob Terry, Community Development Director.
Thank you. City of San Joaquin. City of Sanger. City of Selma.
Jeannie, sorry.
Yes.
City of Sanger sent a chat in. Derek Sylvester is on.
Okay, City of Selma. County of Fresno.
Mohammed Ali.
Mohammed Kosan with County of Fresno.
Okay. For voting purposes of the roundtable, Mohammed Korsan is the member.
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that correct, or?
Well, I thought county has 2 votes, but
Each agency has 1 vote, Mohammed.
okay, yeah, Mohammed Korsan is fine.
We work it out.
Okay, thank you. San Joaquin Valley Air District. LAFCO.
Jeannie, George is on. He is supposed to represent LAFCO.
Okay. Just remember to unmute yourself to talk, or *6 to unmute yourself if you're calling by phone. I'm going to go ahead and George and roll call. Caltrans.
Hi, this is Jamaica Gentry, representing Caltrans.
Thank you. Public Transportation Urban, Fax. Is Carolina on the line?
This is Carolina. I'm present here for FACTS, Department of Transportation, City of Fresno.
Thank you. Public Transportation Rural.
Moses Stites, Fresno County Rural Transit Agency.
Active Transportation.
Tina Sumner, Fresno Cycling Club.
Affordable Housing.
Michael Duarte, Fresno Housing Authority.
Thank you. Agriculture has been invited but is not available today. Broad-based business.
I believe, is that me, Eric Vonberg?
Yes.
Yes, with Rincon Consultants.
Building Development, Mike Prandini.
Okay. I'm here.
Thank you. Education, George Cummings.
Yes, here with State Center Community College District.
Thank you. Environment, Adam Livingston.
Yep, this is Adam Livingston, Director of Planning and Policy at Sequoia Riverlands Trust.
Thank you. Environmental Justice, Leslie Martinez. Goods Movement has a spot, don't have anybody unless there's somebody on the line. Measure C Citizens Oversight Committee, Kevin Hamilton. New Technology, Joseph Oldham.
I'm here.
Public Health Advocate, Keith Berthold.
Fresno Metro Ministry, Keith here.
Thank you. Tribal Government. Utilities. Ann Camperson. Water Agency. And we have our 3 at-large members, Gail Miller.
Here.
Jim Hunter.
Here.
Sal Petrocelli.
Here.
Okay. Give me just a second.
Let's give Ginny a second to tally how many voting members are present today.
We have 21 present.
Great, thank you, Ginny. So the next group, we are going to do introduction for the public, people who are not on the RTP Roundtable. We're going to do it a little differently. So for people who are not on the Roundtable, please raise your hand on the screen, or if you're on the phone, please dial *9. And we're going to call your name one by one so that you can introduce yourself. Please remember to unmute yourself when you're ready to talk. Try, are you going to do it?
Okay, first one, Matthew Gillian. Please unmute yourself. Matthew.
There we go. Sorry about that. Hello, Matthew Gillian, Founding Director of Inspiration Transportation.
Nick Palladino.
Nick Palladino, alternate for Tina Sumner, Active Transportation, Fresno Cycling Club.
And those are all the raised hand I've seen. So if you are a member of the public and you've not been called, please raise your hand or press star 6 to unmute yourself.
Do we have any more people from the public that haven't introduced yourselves yet?
Oh, Anthony Molina. Please unmute yourself.
You're muted, Anthony.
Anthony Molina, the City of Fresno Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee and the Fresno County Bicycle Coalition.
Any remaining members of the public?
Christine, it does look like Joey Daggett, representing City of Selma, has added in. Joey, are you on the line as well now?
I am. Sorry for my tardiness.
And there are no more raised hands.
Okay, great. Last but not the least, Fresno COG staff, please introduce yourselves.
This is Todd Sobrano, Fresno COG, fax.
Janine Cervantes, Fresno COG.
Hi, Fresno COG.
Try Cole, Fresno COG.
Braden Duran, Fresno COG.
That's Scott, Fresno COG.
Dan Martinez, Fresno COG.
Robert Fick.
Jeff Long, Fresno COG.
Meg Prince, Fresno COG.
Brenda Vienendahl, Fresno COG.
Anybody else?
Peggy Ernest, Fresno COG.
All right. Thank you, everyone. So let's move to item number 2. New information discussion items. Item number 2A, selection of chair and vice chair. First of all, I would like to remind everyone that only people on the RTP Roundtable can participate and vote for this item. So the chair position for the roundtable will be filled by the roundtable member. The chair will work with Fresno COG staff to set rules for the roundtable meetings and ensure fair participation from the roundtable members and the public. Now I would like to open the floor for nominations.
Christine, this is Mohammed Korsan, the County of Fresno. I will nominate Rob Terry from City of Reedy for the chair of the roundtable.
Great, thank you, Mohammed. Any other nominations?
This is Moses. I'd like to second that. Rob Terry for the chair.
Okay, great. Do we have any other nomination? If no, we have a motion and then we have a second. Let's take the vote. So we are going to do the voting it's a little unique. So as you notice, if you click the participant button, you will see at the bottom right, you'll see yes or no. For those of the members, the roundtable members, if you're on the phone, please vote by clicking yes or no. And then we'll come back to those members who are on the phone. We're going to do it a little differently. So Jeannie, did you say that we have 22 voting members present today, including Joey who came in late?
Yes, 22. So our majority would be 12. Right now we have 14 members voting yes. We don't have any no's. We can go ahead and call on the people on the phone to press *9, raise their hand to be called on for their verbal vote.
Janine and Christine, it looks like, I believe it's Sarge Green who joined who joined us right now.
Okay. Sarge Green represents the water agency. He's also a voting member.
Okay, we have 23 members present.
Okay. Are we ready to move to the voting members on the phone?
Yes.
All right. So for those voting members on the phone, please raise your hand and we'll call your name one by one to get your vote.
And to raise your hand on the phone, I believe you press *9.
Keith Bertzold,
Yes.
Mohammed Korsan,
Yes.
George Ook. Tell me if I'm saying that right correctly. George.
Yes. Hello, this is George Ook.
Great, thank
I
you.
say yes.
Any other members on the phone? Please raise your hand.
Derek Sylvester is on the line. Oh, we captured his. Okay.
Sal.
Yes.
Okay. George Cummings.
Yes.
Carolina.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Rob Terry. You still have a vote.
Yes, and thank you for all the votes of confidence up to this point. I would just like to remind everyone that I will get even in the future.
Matthew Duarte. Michael Duarte.
Yes.
Michael Navarro.
It's actually Jamaica representing Caltrans.
I apologize. I have a vote for Jamaica.
That is a unanimous vote. There's 23 members present, 23 voting yes.
Thank you so much. Congratulations, Rob.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate the confidence.
All right, now I'd like to open the floor for nomination for the vice chair. Any nomination?
Oh, this is Jim Hunter. I'd like to nominate Gail Miller.
Gail. All right, that's a motion to nominate Gail Miller as the vice chair. Anybody would like to second that?
It looks like Moses has his hand raised.
Yes, I would like to second that motion for Gail Miller.
Christina.
Could you please repeat the name? Connection, but it went out for a second. Who has been nominated?
Gail Miller. She represents public at large. She used to work for Caltrans District 6. She was nominated as the vice chair for the Roundtable Committee. And Moses Stite, who is the general manager of the Fresno County Rural Transit Agency, second that motion.
Okay.
All right. So are we ready for the vote?
Are there any other nominations?
Any other nominations or discussions? Seeing none, let's vote. For those of the voting members on your computer, please vote by clicking yes or no on your screen. You let me know when you're ready to move to the people on the phone.
Okay, we currently have 15 yes and 0 no's for the members on the computer. We can go ahead and go to those on the phone.
Okay. The voting members on the phone, please raise your hand so that your name will be called for your votes.
Keith Birdsall,
Yes.
any other members on the phone? Carolina? Carolina? Okay.
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Any other members?
Sal?
Might be easier if I just go down the list. Mohammed Korsan?
Yes.
Okay. Sal
Petroselli, yes. Yes.
George Cummings?
Yes, but I think I appeared twice on the roll on my computer and the phone. I did vote with my computer.
Okay.
But my vote is yes.
I'll have to make that note. Okay. Eric Von Burt, I have your vote. Jim Jansen?
No, he's on the computer.
Yes, John Jansen's yes.
Matthew Gillian?
He's a member of the public. And we do have, it looks like we have Michael Osborne joining us right now from City of Mendota.
Okay. Hi, Michael.
Hey there. Sorry I was a little bit late.
Right. So we are now taking the vote for the vice chair position, and Gail Miller was nominated to be the vice chair for our RTP Roundtable. We're taking vote right now, and you are a voting member.
I like it.
Thank you.
Any other members on the phone from the roundtable who hasn't voted, please raise your hand.
Okay. My count with right now, Christine, is 22 yes votes. We have 22 members. I'm not sure which two we didn't capture.
All right. Well, Gail, congratulations.
Thank you. So thanks for the vote of confidence, and I humbly accept.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we have a chair and a vice chair. I would like to turn the rest of the meeting to our chair, Rob Terry. Rob.
Thank you, Christine. Appreciate it. My apologies up front. I got to work this morning just to find out that my computer had completely crashed. And so they're reinstalling a new computer and Windows and everything. So I'm using my cell phone and an office phone today. So my apologies if things seem a bit off today.
If you're on a cell phone and a computer, you're going to have to mute one completely. So if you want to mute your computer and just talk on your cell phone, that's fine.
I think we have it solved.
Okay, is that going to work?
Yes, that's much better.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys.
Sorry. Still echoing.
All right, is that any better?
Yes, that's better.
Okay, I'm really sorry, guys. We're having technology issues in our office today, so I'm going to blame it on the earthquake that happened earlier today. We'll see if that holds up. So obviously, now that we've gone through these items here, we're going to move over into new information, item B, for the 2022 RTP SES schedule and the milestones. So Christine, if we could hand that over to you at this point here, and staff is going to go ahead and give us a brief summary of what the schedule is and what things are going to be looking like as we begin this process and really get this kickoff going.
All right, thank you, Rob. So this is going to be a 2-year process. We are planning adopting our 2022 RTP SES in June of 2022. So we're kicking off the entire process. Actually, we had some pre-kickoff activities that already took place, but today is our kickoff meeting. And we have, currently we have our consultants working on scientific surveys and demographic forecasts, and they're going to come back with the result report to the roundtable in a couple of months. And we're going to go out to do our outreach. I'm not sure whether we can really go out, but we are going to do the outreach in the fall, September, October, to get some feedback on the suggested transportation improvements in our community. Last cycle, we had 15 workshops out in the communities just to solicit input on improvements in our community. But this go around, we're going to do something different if, it doesn't seem like we are able to do in-person workshops. Anyways, and then we're going to, in the fall, we're going to start the SCS scenario development. In the meantime, we're going to work with our local governments staff to develop the RTP project list. That's going to happen in the fall, all the way until the end of the year. We will be working on the EJ analysis, the scenario modeling for the SCS, and then after the SCS scenarios are modeled, we're going to go out to the public again to do another round of outreach. And in October of 2021, next year, we plan to have our preferred SCS scenario selected. So that's a very important key milestone. After that, then we'll just go so that's when our RTP Roundtable meeting probably is going to take a break. I would say after that, we wouldn't have monthly meetings. We probably will just meet one or twice after that just to review the environmental document, the entire document. And then, we'll be developing the conformity and the EIR, all that work. So that's the very high level summary of our schedule and milestones. And I probably mentioned RENA somewhere in different locations. So the 6th cycle RENA will be developed at the same time in sync with our 2022 RTP SCS, but that will be a different, a separate process. But we will bring the RENA information to the roundtable just for information. The recommendation approval process will have, the RENA will have its own subcommittee for that, but we'll bring that into the RTP roundtable just for your information. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions you might have. I see a hand raised. Nick?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Nick Palladino, the question regarding the community needs workshop as it relates to call for projects. Well, the community needs work on a community needs workshop. I'm assuming that's going to be the same thing as last time. We're going to ask the public for requested projects, correct?
Yes. So
okay, you can ask for requested projects, sidewalks or bike lanes or trails, and you're going to then take those requested projects and submit those to the local jurisdictions in time for them to review those and decide whether or not to forward them back to the COG on the call for projects?
Yes, yes. So in our schedule, we do allow enough time for the comments or suggested recommendations from the public to go to the local governments for their consideration. And then they can incorporate those comments in their proposed project list to Fresno COG.
Yeah. Other question is, how many scenarios will you be developing?
You know, it's always we don't have a fixed number of scenario now. I'm thinking 3 to 4 depending on how much time we have. But this go around, we're going to take on a different process that Seth is going to talk about in the next item. We're going to talk about futures, which is different than the SCS scenario. So we're going to do futures and then we're going to do scenarios. So in terms of modeling, we're going to have a little more time. So 3 to 4, I would think. Otherwise, when we have too many scenarios, when we bring the scenarios out to the public, to the stakeholders, it's very time consuming. Sometimes it's confusing. So we try to limit, scenario to 3 to 4.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, back to you, Rob. Oh, I'm sorry, there's another hand raised.
Sophia, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted you to refresh us on what the RTP does in terms of future funding. Does it actually have funding attached to it, or how does that work?
Well, it is a $1 million question.
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
So the RTP is a long-range plan. It looks at our transportation needs, for the next 20 plus years. So the way we do our revenue forecast is really, we look at the historical trend, and based on the revenue we have received from the past, we do revenue projection into the future. So these are the money that available in the RTP. Those are the forecast dollars. Most of it is not real dollars, it's planned dollars that we COG thinks we probably will get it based on the historical trend. But with that said, so that was the most of the money in the RTP. But with that said, we also include the projects in the FTIP. That's the Federal Transportation Improvement Program, which is 4-year program. That's from the next 4 years. The projects included in the FTIP are the project that have been awarded money with real dollars. So those projects are also included in the RTP SCS. So those are the projects with real dollars. And we also include the projects from our measure. So that's also project with more, we were more sure of the funding. So Suzanne, are you on the line? Do you have anything to add?
No, I think you did a good job, unless you have any other questions.
Does that answer your question, Sophia?
Christine, we have another question from Nick. Go ahead, Nick, unmute yourself.
Yes, on your revenue forecast, do you include all dollars or just those dollars that flow through the COG? And an example is the SB1 local streets and roads. That money goes straight from the state to local jurisdictions, did not go through COG at all. So in your revenue forecast, do you include all dollars that come into the county, the region, or just those dollars that in some manner flow through the MPO RTPA?
So Yes, so we don't include all of the SB1 dollars in our revenue projections because, like you said, a lot of that funding goes directly to the cities, and they may be using it on local streets and roads that aren't part of the functional highway system at all. We do project some of the local funding that may be put on federal projects. And we do it the same way. We estimate, how much local funding has been put on projects in the past. We get a general estimate and then we project from there. So there are some of the SB1 funding, some of the SB1 funding streams that are used on our federal projects that we do account for, but not all of the SB1 funds for that reason, because it's not all that money is going to be used on projects that would be in our RTP.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think should be cleared off. I think we need to invoice for work so I can get rid of them.
Okay.
So can you open QuickBooks and look down?
Yeah, let me just get this volume going here.
Okay, if no more question for me, then back to you, Rob.
All right, Christine, thank you very much. Appreciate the introduction there, and definitely some very valid questions. And I think it's really important that the group keep in mind that as we're going through this, this is a very intense, very broad process, as you can tell by just the amount of stakeholders and interested parties that are engaged in the process. So if there's ever any questions, we're very fortunate to have a great group of people here that have a lot of experience with the RTP, the SCS. Many of us have had the opportunity to work together over several rounds of this, so I think that we've been able to address a lot of things up front. So we want to make sure that this is open and inclusive, and any questions that do come up, that they're asked, and that we all have the respect and courtesy for each other to ask questions, to provide answers, and to be able to work through this the best that we can. And so with that here, we're going to move on to item C, and this is the introduction of the future planning concepts. Seth is going to take this one for us here, and I think that this is extremely important. In the past, there's been a lot of the discussions, of course, and focus on the scenarios, but the angle that's going to be taken this time is some ways it's going to help us be able to test some of those scenarios with various futures and some other unknowns. We can take a better look at some potential changes and what that might mean for a certain scenario, or even a piece of a certain scenario. So I think it's going to be a very interesting thing. Fresno COG, we are extremely fortunate in this region to have some of the best modelers that there are out there. And so they're going to introduce to us here exactly how we're going to be able to walk through this. So Seth, with that, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Rob. Hello, everybody. It's nice to be back working on the RTP again. Like Rob mentioned, we have a lot of veterans here, but I'm going to try to not assume that there's a base level of knowledge there about the RTP or about scenarios or SCS. Feel welcome at the end to ask me any questions you have. There are no such thing as stupid questions, only stupid people. So the scenarios have to do with the SCS, the Sustainable Community Strategy portion of the Regional Transportation Plan. And what this involves is essentially, this is the framework in which we marry land use and transportation planning together in order to ultimately reduce greenhouse gas emissions due to travel in the future. There are other co-benefits that the SCS can address, but the main bread and butter of what the SCS does is it looks at where land use is being planned, it looks at where transportation improvements are being planned, and it puts them into a traffic model that then is able to generate what greenhouse gas emissions there are due to travel. And so we're trying to plan our future in such a way so that that is reduced. And if we can address some other, what they're called co-benefits in the legislation, if we can address some of those as we go, then that's obviously very good as well. So that's the framework in which the SCS, the Sustainable Community Strategy, exists. And so in that is this concept of scenario planning. And a scenario in a nutshell is essentially a snapshot of the future, or of a possible future for the region of Fresno County. There's a lot that goes into that. and really those can kind of be put into two camps. One camp are what I'm calling strategies. These are things that we have direct control over as public agencies and as other stakeholders in turning the rudder, if you will, of the ship that we're all on into the future. These are things that we can do to move the needle and to actively put us in a direction that is sustainable and that is equitable and all of these things. And the other side are, I guess, exogenous variables, you might call them, things that are largely outside of our control. And this would involve things such as, population and demographic growth, employment growth, funding for transportation projects. A lot of these have a lot of unknown variables attached to them that we can't, we don't have a crystal ball. And so we can make some educated guesses. And we're working right now, Christine mentioned earlier that we're working on an updated demographic forecast for our region that goes out to 2050, where we're attempting to do exactly that. We're trying to come up with a good, reasonable projection of what future assumptions we can reasonably make about the future. But again, nothing is set in stone because it's yet to happen. So in the past, when we've done our scenarios, the snapshot that is a scenario has involved those two things together. That's the whole scenario. ARB, the Air Resources Board, who is responsible for validating the greenhouse gas emissions reduction portion of the SCS, their big push is to look just at the strategies. They say if you're reducing greenhouse gases due to travel, we want it to be less about the assumptions that you're putting into your model, and we want it to be more about what strategies are you performing as a region that will decrease greenhouse gas emissions due to travel. So if a big outside event happens and that leads to, COVID-19 case in point, we're in a situation where vehicle miles traveled, VMT in the region over the past couple of months has dipped. I don't remember what the percentage is, but it's ridiculous because everybody was staying at home, right? That looks really good as far as greenhouse gas emissions due to travel. Was that due to active strategies with the goal of long-term reduction of greenhouse gas emissions? Not necessarily, no. It's kind of a reaction to this global pandemic. And so that would be an example of an exogenous variable that would not necessarily constitute a strategy. But in the past, we had to consider it was all a mixed bag. It was just, here are all the assumptions, here are all the strategies, and you just had to take it all together. Some things that some other planning agencies have been doing is they've been separating those into separate discussions. I have some notable exceptions in the annotated agenda here. A couple are the California Transportation Plan 2050, which comes from Caltrans, also Plan Bay Area in 2050 from NTC. They introduced this concept of futures. And what futures are meant to do is they're meant to encapsulate all those exogenous variables. What are the things that are largely outside of our control that could happen in the Fresno County region? And they sort of use these as, think of them as stress tests, if you will, to test the strategies that form the base of the scenarios that are being considered. So you have, say, different lists of different types of strategies. Like, okay, well, we could focus on these priorities, we could focus on these strategies. Let's test that against these different assumptions about the future and see how it performs in each of these scenarios. Then you look at another set of strategies and say, okay, we could do this different thing. And let's test these against the exact same futures and see how that ends up performing. And so that's the direction that Fresno COG was excited about in following this trend in long-range planning of taking the strategies separate from the futures and using the futures to essentially test the mettle, the sustainability of the strategies that are being put into the scenarios. And then when you combine those together, that's where the scenarios come from. And so that's how it's different from how we've done it in the past. And I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce the concept of futures to kind of bring everybody along. So let's jump right into it. I did a lot of this discussion already. I kind of got ahead of myself on the slides, but what are futures? Futures are sets of assumptions about possible growth conditions in Fresno County. They include characteristics such as population and employment growth, demographic layout, transportation funding, etc. Futures are not scenarios, but rather they're frameworks within which the scenarios will be tested. So that's the big idea here. We're going to have to analyze these futures, and so our plan for this RTP is to develop what we're calling a base future, which represents a reasonable median forecasted growth projection for all of these different variables that are exogenous. So that's, again, we're working on a demographic forecast update. We'll be talking more about that in months to come. And we'll be developing a base future that's, what we feel is the most reasonable projection for this is what we expect the future to look like with regard to these exogenous variables. In addition to that, though, we would like to analyze an additional 3 futures or so, 2 or 3, that represent more extreme conditions to test the resiliency of the scenario strategies. And so this is our idea on how we're going to do scenario analysis and modeling for the 2022 RTP SCS. Is you have a base future, which is, this is kind of the middle of the road, all signs point to this, within some level of certainty being the way the future is going to look. But if these other things happen and we kind of diverge from that into a new direction, into a more extreme direction, how would those same strategies that we're trying to test fare in those more extreme conditions? And so we're hoping to add this level of analysis to test the resiliency of the strategies. So now let's talk about scenarios. What is a scenario? A scenario is a specific vision for the future of Fresno County. So it's not just those exogenous variables, it's not just the strategies, it's the interfacing of those two things together to create a snapshot in time for a particular future horizon year. For example, 2035. 2035 is an important year for the SCS because that's the year for which greenhouse gas reduction targets are being set. So by 2035, we need to achieve the target set for our region, which is 13% per capita reduction compared to the same levels in 2005. And so we'll be talking, even though the RTP, the horizon year is, oh, forgive me, is it 2045 or 2046? I don't remember off the top of my head. But 2035 remains sort of a vision year, or it's a linchpin kind of a year for this plan, and we'll be talking about that particular year a lot. It includes the implementation of strategies tested against assumptions about the future. How scenarios are built, and so I wanted to come up with a visual aid to kind of help nail this idea in further. You have one part of the scenarios, which are the strategies. These are largely land use and transportation strategies because that's the purview of the Sustainable Community Strategy Plan, is what land use and transportation strategies can we employ to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions and also perform other co-benefits as well. That fits in with this idea of what the future conditions are going to be. What's our population growth going to be? What's our economic, what does it look, what does the economy look like? What sort of regulations are we facing? What sort of funding are we looking at? All of these sorts of things. And how do those interface with the strategies? And that together forms the picture of our scenario. From these together, these go together into the traffic model, and we can use that traffic model to create performance indicators, which are essentially data that tell us various things about the state of travel for this future scenario situation. Important performance indicators would be things like vehicle miles traveled. What's the total VMT for the whole region? How many millions of miles are being driven by vehicles in our city? There's a very strong correlation between total VMT and total greenhouse gas emissions, and so we want that VMT to be optimally low. Some other performance indicators, we might have health indicators. How many net years of life are being lost due to conditions that may arise from a sedentary lifestyle. If we can enact land use and transportation strategies that encourage people, for instance, to walk and bike more, to employ more active transportation, we have a way of modeling that in terms of how does that affect the health quality of life in Fresno County. So these are just a couple examples. There are countless performance indicators that we could come up with, to judge what's going on and to kind of keep our finger on the pulse of what these scenarios look like. But the way we're thinking of doing that is condensing all of that for a scenario into what we're going to call a report card. Now that instead of just having, for instance, 3 scenarios, instead of just having 3 scenarios that just are you have all these performance indicators for each of them, we now have 3 or 4 scenarios against 3 or 4 futures plus a base future. And so we're looking at a large, a big matrix of different things, and it gets very overwhelming very quickly. And so we're thinking of, for each scenario, condensing it down to just a single report card, which just gives like a letter grade, just to keep it really simple. This scenario gets an overall a B+, whatever that ends up meaning. And we can go into more details once we get down the road as far as how that is done. And so as part of this analysis, say we have 3 different strategy sets that we're using. We have this strategy that we can use, we could do these strategies, or we could do these strategies. These are the things that we're testing against the future to see what's the most resilient and sustainable set of strategies moving forward to help us meet our greenhouse gas emission reduction goals, as well as the other co-benefits that are important to us as a region. And we also have a bunch of different futures, which are different assumptions about what the future could look like. And so we want to test all of these strategies against all of these futures to get a very robust view of which strategies are going to be the most resilient across all possible futures. All right, so I think this is my last major slide here. And this is just another visual representation of what we've been talking about. So at the very end of this process, we have, say, the strategy set A over here. We test it against future 1. The report card, the performance indicators come back, we get a report card grade of B+. All right, we take those same strategies, plug them into future 2, it gets an A-, future 3, it gets a C-. This is all obviously just examples that we're pulling out of thin air. But all of these together would constitute, fall under the umbrella of scenario A. Scenario A performs like this against these possible futures. And of course, one of these futures would be the base future, which would be sort of like the main grade that it would get. And then it would get these secondary grades or secondary report cards based off of the more extreme future conditions. We would repeat this same practice for the other scenarios, the other strategy sets that we're considering. And we get this, this suite here of report cards. And we can use this to make decisions about which set of scenarios we feel are best for our region moving forward. And this will help us pick our preferred scenario. The best strategies, of course, are those that show resiliency across multiple possible futures. And so that's what we come to. That's the final idea that all this leads up to, is that we want to find out which strategies not only perform the best, but perform the best across a bunch of different possible things that could happen. Real quick, Fresno COG back in February hosted 2 Fresno Futures workshops where we invited stakeholders to come and we gave them a version of this presentation, and then we split them into focus groups to discuss some proposed futures. Each focus group focused on one future and brainstormed potential impacts of those future assumptions, what possible strategies might be utilized to mitigate or address those impacts, and those sorts of things. So we have all that input that we're ready. Next month, we will be presenting to this group for feedback on these specific futures that we're proposing folding into this process. So that's next month. And that does it for me. I imagine there's probably some questions out there. That's a lot of information. Again, feel welcome to share your questions now, and I'll do my best to answer. Thank you.
Once again, if you're on the phone and you do have a question, you can go ahead and press *9 to raise your hand.
Okay, Braden, unless we did have any questions come up, go ahead and move on to the next item. So just check real quick one more time before we do. Any questions from anyone on the phone or online?
It doesn't look like it.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much, Seth. It's a very robust tool, and I think it's really going to allow us as a region to take a look at a lot of stuff that really couldn't have been as deeply involved in the discussion as it has been in the past. Or in the past, we're really going to be able to have more of that robust discussion now. So that's an exciting thing, and very grateful that we have you in place, you and the rest of the modeling team there, and everybody that has the capacity and the understanding to help us navigate all of these discussions. So thank you, Seth. Okay, we're going to move on to item D. This is for the public outreach strategy. This plan, for those of you that have not had the opportunity to see the public draft that has been released, it is available online. The link, of course, was found right in the agenda itself. Covers a ton of content. Brenda Vienendahl is one of the most experienced in the public outreach realm, so we are very blessed to have her be a part of this as well. And with that, Brenda, going to hand it on over to you.
Thank you, Rob. Welcome everybody, good afternoon. I have a lot to share, but I will make it concise. I cannot see, is my presentation up? There we go. So you can go to slide 2. Okay, Fresno COG's public participation plan, as Rob said, was released for public review on March 3rd. And it's scheduled for adoption tomorrow evening by the Fresno COG Policy Board. We did a lot of outreach for it, even with all of the sheltering in place and the COVID-19 requirements, extended the public hearing dates to give people opportunity to respond. So we're pretty confident moving forward that, that we have public support at this time. The PPP, as we call it, is updated every 4 years, and it contains public participation requirements, procedures, strategies, techniques that we use to communicate with the public and appropriate affected agencies. It also defines a process that outlines our roles, responsibilities, and the key decision points for consulting with various agencies and the public. And the process and opportunities to be involved in the metropolitan transportation planning process, which this very much is. Key to this effort, it includes an RTP public outreach strategy as Appendix A in the document as a blueprint for engaging the public during the RTP planning and development. Next slide. The RTP planning process must foster involvement through a proactive public participation process with all of the interested parties. Pages 7 and 8 of this public outreach strategy, again, Appendix A in the PPP, and linked to your annotated agenda, defines those interested parties. And then Title 23 of the Code of Federal Regulations states the requirements for development and usage of a documented public participation plan. So there are strategies and key points for which we must do public participation, but at Fresno COG, we always go above and beyond that. Next slide. The sustainable community strategy that Seth was talking about, it's within the RTP, it's its own chapter, but covers and crosses lines with many of the other elements of the RTP, has its own consultation requirements that are even more stringent. It requires mapping and visualization tools, active participation of another list of a broad range of stakeholders, a consultation with various defined agencies, including LAFCO, special districts, school districts, and that's just a few. Public workshops at key points during development, and there is discussion about how we do those workshops according to the written requirements moving forward, and whether or not there are going to be some variations made on those requirements. And then informational meetings for elected officials as the SCS is built out. and it includes a 55-day public review and comment period for the final draft SCS, which is longer than any other document that we develop. Next slide. So these are the public outreach strategies that were included in that RTP public outreach strategy. It begins with the formation of this RTP Roundtable. This is kind of the cornerstone of our outreach. You represent well, it's 39 people conceivably positions on this committee. So you represent a lot of people that we hope you'll go back and convey this information to. The implementation of an RTP community survey, which is underway right now. It's going very well. They've almost completed all of the surveys that they're going to summarize and report on. A survey consultant is asking our community to prioritize a list of values and a list of transportation funding priorities that will then feed into the SCS and the RTP. The results will be reported to you during your August meeting at the very latest. It's going very quickly and very well. So maybe July, but we're planning on August right now. And then that survey just becomes another tool for you and our policy board, our committees to use in making decisions moving forward on the RTP and the SCS. The community-based mini grant outreach program, we are contracting with 3 community groups to help us conduct public outreach throughout our communities in the Fresno region. And those agencies are Inspiration Transportation, and their directors on the call with us today, Chikara Movement, and Central Valley Partnership. Our first meeting is July 7th, and we'll be actively moving forward to do our planning. When they first turned in the proposals, there was a lot of in-person workshops planned, and so we are going to have to talk through how that's actually going to work moving forward. But they have contacts we don't have. They can reach out into the community to people that we couldn't possibly. So it'll be a huge benefit to have them on board and working with us. Working through, we'll also be working through social networks and email notifications, posting detailed website content on the Fresno COG website, conducting community meetings and technical working groups, whether that be virtual or in person remains to be seen, but we are making plans for both. Also conducting RTP SCS community workshops, community meetings, and technical working groups. However, those may look at this time, but they are required. Most of them are not required until next year. So additional strategies as identified during the process, which then leads us to the considerations necessary in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, where large workshops and mid-sized community meetings may no longer be an option. Next slide. Ariana, I can't see it, so please forgive me. So Fresno COG, over the last couple of months, I've just been watching to see what's going to happen with the ability to reach out to people one-on-one or face-to-face. And I've begun working with staff to develop an additional virtual public outreach strategy that, that includes a number of things listed here. The first thing is a dedicated RTP update website called planfresno.com. So rather than just updating our current website and RTP pages with information, this website will house everything about the RTP update, from what's going on with meetings here. We'd like to include some information about our RTP Roundtable and the committees involved. We've been building this website out for about a month and really adding content now. It's hard to add anything until you have content, but staff has been working on this and we hope to launch it this week. That's our plan, hopefully by Thursday evening. But we will be sending out notifications and social media posts when that website is ready to view. It also includes a sign-up form for those who want to be added to our e-news listing. There'll be an exclusive listing just for RTP updates, a blog, and a comment form. And we're excited because it's actually easy to advertise and access with a simplified URL. So, and again, it's planfresno.com, but it's not released yet. So Fresno COG has also been in conversation with a company called publicinput.com for the last 3 years. they started approaching us when we were working with MetroQuest during our last RTP update to do online interactive surveys. And we just watched what they were doing. We watched their company grow and work with other agencies, and researching their community engagement software that operates as a comprehensive toolkit with over 20 flexible formats for surveys, meetings, interactive mapping. It manages contacts and groups and relationships and social responses, engagement responses. So everything you ask via social media, websites, blogs, you name it, all of that data is collected into one place. You can ask the same question over different formats, and it'll all be collected so that it's easier for us to see it immediately and report back out, because everything we do for public outreach, again, is a tool for you to use in making decisions as you move forward. The automated analysis tools, again, make it really easy to understand participant geography and demographics, so we can see if there's a geographic area or a demographic portion of our population that we're missing, and then we can target them specifically. That I'm really excited about. And then staff will be developing short videos to explain staff progress, to explain what the RTP is as we enter different phases of the RTP development, and posting them to YouTube, and again to the Plan Fresno website, our e-news publication, social media, so that staff can casually, quickly explain something without having people come to a workshop. And I'm excited about it. Staff hasn't looked at me angrily yet as I've approached them with this idea. They seem receptive. So I think it'll be a good way to convey difficult information very quickly. And Steph is an actor, so he's definitely going to be in those videos. Monthly dedicated e-news publications for RTP progress will also be sent out. We can add online town halls, not sure how that works yet, and virtual workshops to our list of meeting input options. And for those who sign up, we can text out alerts and little mini surveys on things that we just want to get quick feedback on. And then we'll have the opportunity to have the same type of interactive surveys for those who want to participate online, and it gives them visualization tools that it's not a game, but it's fun to do because it's interactive. You ask them to rate things. They can go into a map and click an area and tell you about a project they might be interested in, or an area that needs help. And so it's a good way to get quick feedback from people. So this is our new set of tools that enhances the original proposed and required in the public outreach strategy that's being adopted tomorrow. Next slide. So this next slide is the outreach timeline for just 2020, not getting too far into the future because I don't know how next year is going to look. But it starts with this month. As you can see, in June, we have the RTP survey was initiated. The RTP mini grantees were selected, and we're moving into agreements. We've got our first meeting scheduled, and then the RTP Roundtable is kicking off. In July, the RTP outreach coordination with all of our partners will begin, and public input software staff will be really getting deep into the training. Our contract with publicinput.com starts July 1st, so we'll really be jumping into training and starting to build out things to go on social media and e-news to gear up for our big September outreach. And then September outreach plans will be publicized through the month of August on all of our different social medias and communication modes. And August will be very busy with planning for September. And then September is that community transportation needs outreach that we're going to be doing all through the month. We have things we're going to be doing, and then we're going to be approaching you and asking if you can publicize the ways that people can participate through your contacts. If you have any ideas, we certainly want to know about that, and ways that we can get information out to the people that you serve, the communities you work in. And at the next meeting, I'll have an update report on how that's going. And then in October, We'll be summarizing all of those community needs that were forwarded probably through that publicinput.com and sending that back out, reporting on it to the TTC PAC Roundtable and our policy board, and forwarding that to all of the member agencies as soon as possible, so that as the call for projects goes out for the RTP, they'll have all of that information as early as possible. If we can get it to them in September, we'll get it to them in September, but they know it's coming. And then in November, and we also will be responding to any questions or comments that we receive throughout September. We'll be wrapping that up, so we make sure that we're communicating back to people as much as possible, and they know that they've been heard as they've responded to us. That's very important. And then in November, we'll continue outreach through the videos, the social media, email, and evaluate that September outreach and continue to report the results to committee and board. And December is kind of the same, although we'll be starting to look at the next year and figuring out what the outreach will look like. We'll see where our COVID situation looks, whether we'll be able to do virtual workshop, I don't know. But we'll really be looking at that heavily as we get toward the end of the year and we see what happens. And the SDS scenario outreach will begin to be planned as well. Okay, next slide. And then these are different ways that you and the public can get connected with what's happening at Fresno COG. I have really been working to build these out and come up with easy ways for me to update all of these at the same time. And I think I've finally come up with a couple of great ways to do that. And so we have this new planfresno.com website that will have the blog and the comment option, and you can sign up for our e-newsletter through that site. We have a Facebook page that's been ongoing at Fresno Council of Governments Facebook page. We have a LinkedIn page that's also Fresno Council of Governments if you want to look us up. And then we have a Twitter that is at Fresno COG. And we have a YouTube channel. I'm not publicizing it yet. I just opened a new one today, and that's Fresno Council of Governments. It's also, and all of our videos will be posted there and then linked out through the different sources. And then we also have a dedicated email for anybody who doesn't know who they need to contact. They just want to ask a question or comment on something. I do get emails from this particular email address, and it's comment@fresnocog.org. We also have comments@fresnocog.org because that gets confusing. People don't know whether to put the yes or not. So you can email either one and it will go to me, and then I will send it out to whoever that comment or question needs to go to, or find an answer for you myself. But this, in a very quick nutshell, is what's going on with the RTP public outreach. Again, we'll report on this every month, so you'll be up to date on what's happening, how to get connected with it, and hopefully you'll be able to help us as well. We just want to reach out to as many of the community members in the Fresno County region as possible, and it's a very unusual time. So I would be happy to take any questions about the plans or the process or suggestions from any of the roundtable members or the public on the call. So if you have anything you'd like to share, raise your hand, please. Or is it *9 on the phone?
Yes. Okay, there doesn't look like there's any hands raised.
Okay, I'll go ahead and jump back in then. Thank you very much, Brenda. Really exciting to see some of the new tools that we're going to be able to implement through this round here. I think obviously outreach has always been a very high priority for Fresno COG, always been a very consistent effort to be transparent, very inclusive in the processes, and clearly that's just going to be continued here. On the videos that are going to be released, I think it's very important that we get to see Seth at least song and dance one time as an actor. So I think that's critical that we're going to have to see that. So let's go ahead and put that out there. If nothing else, we'll all be able to just enjoy it and have fun with it together. With that said, let's jump into, yeah, see, now, I mean, we can take an official motion on that if needed, or we can Back by popular demand, Seth. Sorry about that, my friend. We'll move on to item E here. We'll go into the new challenges for the 2022 RTP SCS. Christina's going to talk about the very interesting world that we're in, from pandemics to new regulations, new legislation, and all of the fun impacts that that's going to have on the process and everything as we continue to move forward. So Christine, hand it over to you.
All right, thank you, Rob. So, you know, this is, you know, if you don't mind, Rob, I'm going to kind of going to give a little bit of brief introduction about the RTP, which I should have done in the introduction item. For those of you, the roundtable member who are new to the process, I just assume everybody already know about the RTP, but I know there are new members. So the RTP, the Regional Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategy, really is a long-range plan to look at the transportation needs in our region for the next 20-something years, 20 plus years. Our end year is 2046 for this cycle. So this plan provides high-level, policy-level guidance for our transportation investment in the next 20-some years. Since 2008, after the state passed the greenhouse gas or climate change law, SB 375, then the RTP has a new component, the SCS, the Sustainable Community Strategies. So for this component, the RTP is going to be looking at the integrated planning of integrated transportation and land use planning, meaning how our communities are going to grow, the growth patterns, and also how we're going to, where we're going to, and how we're going to invest our transportation dollars. Through the combination of these two components, we are supposed to meet the greenhouse gas emission reduction targets that's set by the state. Seth mentioned that for this round, we have a new target. So I just want to give you that brief background so that you understand what RTP SCS is about. That's why we will be looking at the housing trend. We'll be looking at the travel patterns in our communities. We'll be looking at how we're going to grow, whether we're going to grow in the urban cores, or are we going to grow in the outskirts, or we're going to have more greenfield development or more infield development. These are the important topics that will lead to different outcome of the greenhouse gas emission target that the state wants to meet. So with that, I'm going to go into the challenges of this RTP. These new challenges, I call it new because it's different from what we have done in the last two cycles. Because of the COVID-19, most of you understand that, you know, our transportation funding comes from two major sources. One is the gas tax, the other is general sales tax. So these two source of funding have been hit really significantly. So we are looking at significant shortfall of transportation funding, at least in the near term. And also our employment situation has also been hit. I just read that before the COVID-19 pandemic, our unemployment rate was at 5.7, but now we're at more than 15%. So these are the impact of the COVID-19 that we really have to take into consideration in our development of RTP SCS. So both the planners working on the revenue projection and also our planners working on the demographic forecast. Both groups are looking at different scenarios of a recovery, which may lead to different level of funding, also different level of employment, job recovery. So these are the uncertainties that we will take into consideration, down the road. That's the impact from COVID-19. And as you know, SB 743 is going to take effect next week, July 1st this year. So we need to incorporate 743 into the EIR of our RTP. This is the first time. So we will be doing VMT analysis for our RTP to see whether we're going to, meet this threshold or not, which we don't even know what this threshold is. Although, we know that there are many requests sent to the governor's office requesting for delay of implementation of 743. I really personally haven't really heard anything from the state that they're going to take action. So we haven't heard anything. So that's another new factor we have to take into consideration in our 2022 RTP SCS. Of course, Brenda talked about the outreach, the challenges of public outreach under COVID-19. It's going to be brand new. We used to be able to go out to the community, put the maps up, and talk to people in person and try to communicate with them what their challenges are in terms of getting around in our county, in the communities, and we were able to get comments. So for this round, it has to be through some virtual meetings, and hopefully we can also get to the people who are traditionally hard to reach. So that's our goal, but it's a new challenge for us. As Seth mentioned, this round, we're getting higher GHG reduction number from the ARB, 13% for this cycle. For the 2018 RTP SCS, we had 10%. So it's the GHG emission target is getting higher and higher. Other other regions are getting 18%, 19%. But we would manage to be able to get 13% because of our recommendation anyways. The other challenge we are going to face is the safe vehicle rule. If you follow the federal government's action, last year, end of last year and beginning of this year, the federal government released the safe vehicle rule part 1 and part 2, which really part 1 revoked California's authority to set more stringent standards for our tailpipe emissions, which invalidate our the California zero emission vehicle program and advanced car program. And part 2, which was finalized early this year, rolled back the fuel standard level that set in the Obama administration, and also set new GHG emission standards from light duty vehicles. All these means that all those more aggressive programs built in by California is going to be rolled back. We wouldn't have as many tools to achieve the transportation conformity required by Clean Air Act. So if we're not able to achieve the transportation conformity, which is done through the RTP process, then we will have a problem of getting the federal and state dollars flowing into our region. So it's not a Fresno issue, it's the entire state's issue. So all the MPOs are working really hard with ARB and the Air District to trying to figure out how we can meet the requirement for transportation conformity with the new safe vehicle rule. So the last but not the least one is the RENA, although I mentioned that the RENA is going to be a separate process, but it's required that the RENA's numbers, which is 8 years, needs to be consistent with the forecast of the RTP SCS. So we need to have a link between RENA and the RTP SCS. Based on what we have heard, other regions have received really, really high RENA numbers, 2 or 3 times higher than the last cycle. And we are expecting receiving higher numbers from the HCD this year. So we're going to work closely with our stakeholders on distributing the RENA numbers. And then we'll also report to the RTP Roundtable. So that's just a very brief background information for the new challenges that we have to deal with, to work on. And you know, we will be working very closely with the roundtable and the public, creating strategies and programs and investment policies to trying to overcome all these challenges and to achieve our GHG targets and have the transportation funding continue to flow into our region. So I know it's very high level information. I have all the planning staff here at the roundtable meeting. So if you have any questions about any of this topic, please let us know. We'll try to answer your question as much as we can. Are there any questions?
Okay, if it doesn't look like there's any questions, thank you very much, Christine. You know, it's the RTP SCS process obviously is very intense, and it has a lot of moving pieces in it. And over the last few years, you know, as different legislation has come in and higher numbers, adjusted priorities, everything have come in, it becomes even more challenging to have these type of discussions. But thankfully, I think that we've got a great group of people that are committed to having those discussions and understanding that everybody bringing their own background, understandings, expertise in the various areas, that we will be able to come up with a plan that we hope is going to serve our region in the best way possible, and one that everybody is really going to be able to address the best way we can, despite all of those challenges. And oftentimes even the conflicts that just simply come up in between the various priorities or legislations that we're handed to deal with. I know at the local level, we're constantly, you know, here you need to build 10 times the amount of housing that you've ever been able to build before, but you need to do it without ever touching the dirt. You need to do it without using any water, and GHGs have to be, you know, cut by 6,000%. So, I mean, it feels like it's impossible at times, but that's what we're all here to talk about, and I know that all of us together will be able to really come together, put our heads together, and come up with something, with a plan here that is easy to understand, and is transparent, and it's something that can be implemented on the regional scale for the betterment of our entire region. So thank you very much for that.
I mean, that's why it takes us 2 years to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it was funny when you guys said it's like a 2-year-long process, and I thought, no, I seem to remember Fresno COG staff starting to talk about the next RTP the day after the last one was adopted. So I think it's never ending.
Right.
It just always continues to go.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, unless there's any questions for Christine, then we will move on to section 3 here, item A. Are there any items from staff that feel need to be addressed at this time?
Yes, this is Suzanne. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Suzanne.
Okay, I just wanted to announce that we will be reconvening the Project Evaluation Committee focus group. And that focus group is in order to review and potentially revise the RTP project evaluation criteria. We're going to start working on that now because it's part of the process that's necessary in order to be able to go into our call for projects. So if you recall, the evaluation criteria is used to score the projects that are received through the RTP call for projects process. And it will help to determine which projects are included on the constrained RTP project list based on the future revenue projections that we'll also be coming up with. I'll be sending meeting notifications to this RTP Roundtable, also to the TTC, PAC, and the board. And I'm looking at beginning these meetings in the first or second week of July. So if you'd like to be included on that notification list, feel free to contact me here at the office, or you can give me an email at smartinez@fresnocog.org. And that's it, unless you guys have any questions.
Terrific. Thank you. Any other COG staff with updates?
Christine, go ahead.
Okay, Suzanne, I have a question for you. So can the members of the public participate in your subcommittee process?
They have in the past. Yeah, we had NGOs in the past participate, and members from different organizations that were outside of the RTP committee, so it's possible.
Okay.
Nick, I think Nick had a question.
Yeah, she just answered my question, and my question is going to be who can participate in that committee. And I think just answered it. Alternate committee members and members of the public can attend that committee as well.
Absolutely.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Nick, I think I would speak for all of us when I say that no scoring committee or anything that has to do with projects being scored, projects being funded, no committee would be complete without your inclusion in it and the amount of background and expertise that you bring. So by all means, I think we all want to have you there, and as many members of the public as are interested in those type of items. I mean, obviously, the more input that we can have, the more representative it is of the region. So absolutely. And thank you, Nick, for always being here and making sure that your expertise does help assist everybody.
Agreed. Thank you, Nick.
Rob, I just want to
Yes.
Have a comment. So I know there are people in the meeting that I haven't really communicated with. If you need to, we do have a RTP distribution list that include both the RTP Roundtable members and people who are interested in participating in the RTP Roundtable process. So I put my email in the chat box. You can feel free to email me if you want to be included in the RTP Roundtable distribution list.
And I think, Christine, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think just to ensure that we're going to maintain consistent and very clear communication, any communications that members are interested in having, aside from, a question for a specific COG staff member or something, if there's something that you're looking to bring to the group, those items are going to be best coordinated through Christine as the project manager to ensure that there is very clear and consistent communication. So please utilize that, the contact information there for roundtable purposes only, and ensure that COG staff is engaged in that process. Again, just for the for the assurance of the actual process itself.
Thank you.
Okay, any other staff members with any updates or anything you need to share?
Rob, I think that Keith raised his hand.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, Keith, go ahead.
Hey, great. Yeah, thanks for all this. It feels like it would be really good, and maybe you've already done it and I just missed it. Some of the protocols for how we should treat lists and how we should engage each other. I'm assuming this is sort of a Brown Act group or not? No?
It is.
Okay, so I guess just to make sure, maybe are you going to send us some sort of guidelines and things we should be following to make sure we don't step off the sidewalk?
Right. So we just selected our chair. I did not have a chance to talk to our chair yet. So after today, Rob and I, we are going to communicate and set up some rules for the roundtable committee meetings, and we'll
Great.
to send that out and share with everyone.
Great. Perfect. Just wanted to check. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, any other members that have any last questions or comments that they want to add in?
Well, this is
okay,
Eric.
With that, I'll close that item. Sorry, was there something?
Oh, yeah, this is Eric Bomber. I was wondering what the anticipated schedule for the EIR in that RFP to come out.
Meg?
Christine, do you happen to have background on that yet?
I'm going to let Meg Prince address that. Meg, are you on?
Hi, yes. So we're expecting that the RFP would be released in October of this year.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, guys, hearing none, we'll move on to section 5 here, public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the roundtable on items within its jurisdiction but are not already on the agenda. So if you do have any items that you wanted to bring up that had not already been discussed on this agenda, this would be the time to bring them up. Comments may be limited to 3 minutes, but we'll open it up and see if there's any comments. Okay, hearing none, we'll just touch on what the upcoming meeting dates are. At this time right now, as had been mentioned before, it's a very firm date, so we would be looking at the, I think the thought was it the 3rd Wednesday?
Fourth.
Of each month? Was that the thought there?
Yeah, it's
the 4th Wednesday. Okay, I was going to say. That looks like the 4th to me on my calendar, but okay, so the 4th Wednesday of each month, which would have our next meeting July 22nd from 2 to 4 p.m. Then we'd be at August 26th, September 23rd, and then into October 28th, always from 2 to 4 p.m. Right now, I believe, Christine, again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that we are assuming that all meetings will be remote or online via Zoom or some other platform similar to that until or unless we hear differently based upon COVID-19 situation. Would that be correct?
Yes, exactly. And we will be sending out Zoom meeting instructions and the agenda a week prior to the meeting.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so obviously this was our very first meeting, so we're going to expect a little bit of, familiarity, everybody getting into the saddle, I guess, for lack of a better term, as we're starting on this one. Again, my apologies for the technical issues that we were having in my office here to get it started. I know that's not real strong, but I mean, would we expect anything any different with all of the new challenges and everything that we've got coming through this process anyways? So, yeah, thank you very much. At this time, I think, Christine, that we could convene unless there is anything last minute that COG staff wants to make sure that we understand.
I think we're good.
Okay, guys, with that said, let's go ahead and convene. We'll plan on meeting back again July 22nd, 2 to 4 p.m. with instructions for connection to come. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.